You are all going to die tonight.
Hello everybody, Film Trigger here. My name is Stevie Cade, and the Halloween season is upon us. At least in this house, because we start Halloween at the beginning of September. Like, doesn't everybody? So in celebration, I'm going to do a series of my Rewind reviews, specially dedicated to slashers, horror films, and all-around good movies to watch during this season. So the first one I'm going to start out with is one of my top favorites, Evil Dead, the 2013 remake. The movie was directed by Fede Alvarez, produced by Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell, starring Jane Levy, Shiloh Fernandez, Lou Tyler Pucci, Jessica Lucas, Elizabeth Blackmore, and a special cameo appearance by Bruce Campbell, and we'll dive into that later. So essentially the film is about a drug-addicted Mia Allen, who's played by Jane Levy. And she is determined to get clean with the help of her friends and estranged brother in her family's remote forest cabin. While they're there, one of her friends reads from a mysterious book they found in the cellar, which awakens an ancient demon that possesses Mia and is set out to kill everyone in the house. This hard R slasher film keeps the structure of the original while also giving it a modern makeover and a more grounded tone. It takes the classic cabin in the woods cliche, it makes sense of it. I mean, everyone's there to help Mia through her withdrawals, so they're bound and determined to keep her in that house.
Promise me you'll stay with me until the end.
As Mia begins to discover like a dark force taking over her, everyone kind of chalks it up to her withdrawals are making her mad. And by the time everything takes a drastic turn for the worse, ultimately they get trapped by the main road being flooded out due to a storm. And a lot of these films that have people on camping trips or in the cabins don't really address why they stay in the houses or why they stay where they're at. They just kind of stay there for some reason. It's always been a big loophole in a lot of these films, but this really gives validity to why they're staying there. Then when Mia's possession takes hold, the intense gore and bloodfest start immediately and continue all the way to pretty much the end of the film, all while flirting with an NC-17 rating due to the graphic nature of this movie.
Fuck you!
And the use of practical effects for most of the film was a smart decision made by Fede Alvarez and proves that latex and corn syrup reigns supreme in bringing a horror slasher film to life. There are moments in this film where you can feel the pain that these characters are going through, and that's due to its practical effects. You know, CGI is a great tool, and they do use it in this movie, but very lightly and very well done. It can completely ruin a horror scene by looking rubbery and animated and just pulling you out of the movie completely. One of the biggest examples of this is the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, where they leaned heavily on CGI in lieu of practical effects, and it looks horrible. For example, pretty bad, right? But this movie, it doesn't hold back. It takes you down a blood-soaked journey that leads to one of my favorite horror scenes and probably one of the bloodiest scenes in cinematic history.
Face on this motherfucker!
Practical effects, yes. They used 50,000 gallons of fake blood in one day for that scene. And that was the moment I realized that this will forever be on my top list of horror movies. And Alvarez arguably is paying homage to the original by not only reimagining classic scenes and shots from the original, but also inputting Easter eggs and nods from the original film in this movie. During the first scene, we see Mia fully possessed, and while she's screaming, you hear this voice in the background saying, "One by one, we will take you." And that was actually a recording made for the original movie. And also at the end of the film, you hear a rant being played during the ending credits. And that rant was actually what was originally recorded for the cassette tape in the 1981 movie. The cassette tape player that's sitting next to the Book of the Dead in the original film.
This is Professor Raymond Noby, Department of Ancient History, log entry number 2. I believe I have made a significant find.
And the reason for sticking a lot of that original content into the film probably has to do with the fact that Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell were both very active producers on this movie. This was the remake that they both wanted. And given the chance to make more, it would have fallen into the continuity of the original 3 films. That's what they wanted. So the sequel to this movie was actually supposed to be Army of Darkness, which was going to lead to a 3rd film in which Bruce Campbell came back as Ash and teamed up with Mia to fight the Deadites. How awesome would that have been? Which is why Bruce Campbell had a cameo at the end of this movie, because he was going to be a part of it.
Groovy.
But the studio passed on making the sequel, so Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell kind of took their idea over to the Starz Network, which is why we have the Ash vs. Evil Dead series. Just imagine that with Mia from this Evil Dead with a hard R rating cinematically. But even though Bruce Campbell has seemingly retired from the role of Ash, a sequel could still happen. Actually, Sam Raimi has been teasing on a new Evil Dead project, which I were to assume will probably be a sequel to this remake. And I'm sure he can pull Bruce Campbell out of it. How many actors have we seen go in retirement, and then come back? Mark Hamill. He claimed to be retired and has come back multiple times, I believe. So don't count him out just yet. I do have 2 negatives about this movie. Number 1 is the lack of character development for almost everybody in this film except for Mia. Now, that can kind of get a pass though because it is a slasher film. I mean, how much character development do we really want from people that are going to die? Everybody dies in this movie except for Mia. Do we really want to invest all that time getting to know these people? Not really. And as I said, Mia is the only one who ultimately has a story arc or a development, and rightfully so, as she is the sole survivor. And speaking of Mia, Jane Levy does an incredible job throughout this entire film. I really hope they give her a chance to make a trilogy out of this series. Her character in this movie alone has so many layers, and she takes on so many faces. She really pulls it off believably, with seasoned acting techniques and a real understanding of what Mia is actually going through. Now, my second negative is the character Eric. Essentially, he's the voice of reason, and he's supposed to be an educated man, but he's actually the one that reads from the book, blatantly ignoring all the warning signs, and even goes out of his way to make the forbidden words readable by using the pencil and paper and highlighting the etchings underneath.
Through the recitation of the book's passages, that this dark spirit is given license to possess.
Kunda.
But he did kind of get what was coming, because he ultimately got tortured throughout this whole movie by being berated with more injuries and assaults than any other character. mean, he did kind of deserve it. So, but overall, this film is a staple of the horror genre in this house. It is a go-to for not only the Halloween season, but any time of the year that I want to watch a good slasher. So for me, this movie gets an A.
That was wonderful.
Bravo!
I loved that.
Oh, it was great!
What did you think of this movie? Do you agree with me? Do you think this movie is total crap? Let me know in the comments section below. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell ding thing so you get notified every time I upload a new video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay trigger happy, my friends. Peace. And proves that latex and corn syrup, and then when the possession takes hold and then when